Okay, part 3 of Impressionism, the last part. This is going to be kind of like a class reunion. You're going to see painters that we've already talked about, but maybe in a different way. We ended the last lecture with Mary Cassatt, and I talked about how she had been influenced strongly by Degas, but instead of secretly painting women bathing, she was more about the domesticity of motherhood, etc., in the bourgeois class. She was also heavily influenced, as many Impressionists were, by Japanese art. The term is Japonisme. If you remember from part 1, when I talked about how Japan opened up its borders, basically because they were afraid military force would do it anyway, they created a market, and everybody became obsessed with products from Japan, especially prints. I mean, this goes with the post-impressionists as well. We'll talk about Van Gogh and Japonisme. A lot of artists and just regular people were influenced by Japanese goods. So what are some characteristics of Japanese art? They're asymmetrical, which means there's maybe more things on one side than the other. The pictures themselves are longer, like they're like tall and thin, which is very strange for Western art because it's always more of a rectangular sort of widescreen kind of a thing. There's different perspective, which we saw in Degas and Cassatt with that sort of aerial perspective or kind of looking down. There might be even a lack of perspective, like this doesn't make any sense when you think about one-point perspective or any other kind of perspective. Sometimes there's a lack of shadow. Sometimes there's a lack of modeling, which means like shadows on the face to show the roundness of it. A lot of it has a low diagonal access to the background. Basically, this means like it's top heavy. The spaces are emptied of all but abstract elements of color, which means like you might be looking at a Japanese robe with like decorations on it or just like a flat blue or something. And there's a lot of decorative motifs, like patterns of flowers or fish or something that you might see in Japanese tapestries. So all that stuff then plays a role in what the Impressionists and the Post-Impressionists paint. Here's a print by Mary Cassatt. It's called Maternal Caress. And again, it's this mother and child tender moment that we're looking at. But you can definitely see the influence of Japanese prints in this. There's solid forms, and it's kind of an off-balance composition. Tipped perspective, we're not really sure where we are or how we're looking at this. She's sitting in a chair in front of a bed. And if you notice, the chair and the wallpaper match each other, which is kind of typical of this style as well, where they repeat a decorative motif. Artists were especially influenced in this idea of no shadow or flat areas of strong color. You can see that in this Mary Cassatt print. These next two slides, I'm going to put like a Japanese print right next to a European painting, and you can see the absolute influence there. There's compositional freedom in placing a subject off-center. All of a sudden, if you don't have to have sort of the subject in the middle of the picture, you can do more things. You can create big spaces of solid color. If you look at the Mary Cassatt painting on the right, you can see there's just a big wall, like a blue wall and a brown floor. You can see how the prints, you don't see any kind of shading or shadows in them. It's just like solid colors with some lines, and that's very typical. And then you compare it to the Japanese painting. There's no way I'm going to try to say that name, but there's curved lines, there's patterned surfaces, there's contrasting voids, and there's a flatness of the picture plane itself. In other words, it emphasizes that the surface is a flat thing. Like we're not looking three-dimensionally into like another world, but we're just kind of staring at the surface of a flat piece of paper. Here's our witty friend Whistler, who took Ruskin to court and won his 1 farthing after Ruskin said he flung a paint of pot in people's faces. But Whistler was also influenced by Japanese prints, and this is a Japanese print on the left of like a fireworks show. And then you have Whistler on the right. Now, of course, Whistler's is all brushy, but the idea of like a low horizon line and kind of abstract shapes in the sky, Whistler changed it to suit his tastes. And night scenes are really important in Japanese paintings as well. We don't see a lot of night scenes in European paintings, we will. I mean, one of the most famous paintings that we'll look at is Starry Night by Van Gogh. And artists saw these night scenes by Japanese artists, and they wanted to use this idea to portray their world as well. So we'll see more night scenes because of Japanese print influence. Another thing that became really important in Impressionist painting was the gaze, G-A-Z-E. And that just meant like who's looking and what are you looking at? And there was this famous poet from the time who was friends with all of these Impressionists. His name was Charles Baudelaire. And he wrote about the flaneur, or a person who just kind of walked around the city and took in everything. And he was like a botanist of the sidewalk, is what he called it. So when we look at Impressionist paintings, we have already discussed this with Manet or with other painters about sort of what are we looking at, who's looking at this, who is this made for, like Degas and that the looking over the stage. They have a person in mind to be looking at these paintings, or the paintings are looking back at them. For example, this painting by Mary Cassatt at the opera, she might not be looking at the stage. She might be looking across the opera house at another person, but if you look in the back, you'll see that there's somebody looking at her. Here's a close-up, and you can see Mary Cassatt's like deft use of paint. I mean, that guy is just like a couple of strokes of paint, but you can feel his gaze on this woman. And we are looking at this scene as well. So we're looking at her, but also watching him look at her. She might be looking at something else. There's this whole question of who's doing the looking and how does looking play a part in painting. Like, don't forget that there are viewers that are looking at this painting as well. And that brings us to our last Impressionist painting, which strangely was one of our first realists that we looked at, Manet. So Manet is kind of associated with both the Impressionists and the realists because he painted real people, but he was kind of doing it earlier. And he was trying to be an academic. I think I told you that before. But his brush strokes, his urban life, all of that stuff was right in the wheelhouse of the Impressionists. So we're going to take a minute or two to talk about this painting because it's kind of fascinating. So the Folies Bergère was a large nightclub with bars arranged around a theater with music, a circus, vaudeville acts, like the circus performer and crowd that's reflected in the mirror. It's hard to tell, but behind this woman is a mirror and you can see the crowd. So that's not like a window behind her, and that's not another woman. That's supposed to be a mirror behind her. And you can see the crowd and the performance that's happening. This painting at the bar of the Folies Bergère portrays a girl that's hard at work in a bar, and Manet doing this thing about a hard life, this urban modern life that people live. And this acknowledges her class and her gender, and that she and the products she sells appear to be for sale. In other words, this woman might have also been a prostitute as well as a bartender. So let's think about the idea of the gaze again. I mean, consider the barmaid's personality in this image versus what's in the reflection. Is this mirror supposed to show reality, or is it to be a kind of projection screen for desires? And whose desires? Is it our desires as a viewer? Is it the man's desires to buy her? It's kind of ambiguous. But again, this is kind of what Manet does. But also think about this. What about her reflection? Who are we supposed to be? Whose image do we see in the mirror? And if that all sounds very familiar, you should know that Manet was a big fan of our friend Velázquez. And he knew very well about Las Meninas. He'd even gone to Madrid to see it. So this is kind of Manet's homage to Las Meninas. Okay, I'm going to leave it there because I love when things go full circle and we get back to something that we studied at the beginning of the semester. Until next time.